Unchurned is presented by UpdateAI.
Over the past 6 months, we've spoken to many prestigious people, lots of customer success leaders, lots of founders, and a couple of really amazing authors who wrote books not about customer success, not about customer-facing teams necessarily, but whose thought leadership can be easily applied. And there's so many lessons in what they wrote for customer success. So this week, I want to bring you bits and pieces, the most important bits and pieces of 3 conversations I had.
Welcome to Unchurned, a show about the leaders and innovators of companies who have forged incredible customer relationships and stories you can use to advance your own career. Here's your host, Josh Schechter.
Hey everybody, it's Josh, founder and CEO of UpdateAI, host of Unchurned. This week, we're doing something I think is really cool. I'm very excited about. Over the past 6 months, we've spoken to many prestigious people, lots of customer success leaders, lots of founders, and a couple of really amazing authors who wrote books not about customer success, not about customer-facing teams necessarily, but whose thought leadership can be easily applied. And there's so many lessons in what they wrote for customer success. So this week, I want to bring you bits and pieces, the most important bits and pieces of 3 conversations I had. One with Kindra Hall, who's going to tell us all about how to craft stories and narratives that resonate with customers and also internally with our executive stakeholders. The next is Geoffrey Moore. Geoffrey is literally one of my business idols. I first read his book, Crossing the Chasm, 15 years ago, and it's driven my principles in building products to this day. And I sat down with Geoffrey and we just discussed the current state of the economy, the downturn, and how to deal with that. And the last one is Kelly Leonard. Kelly runs Second City, which is the infamous, the most famous, the most amazing studio for improvisation in the country. Actors like Steve Carell, Tina Fey, the list goes on and on, have come out of there and have worked directly with Kelly. And he tells us about the book he wrote, Yes and, which is all about taking principles of improv and applying that to communication. So we're going to talk to Kelly about how to use yes and when talking to customers. And what do you do when you can't actually use yes and? What's the substitute? First off, let's hear from Kindra, all about the story arc and narrative of storytelling and how to apply that in our day-to-day. You know, now as the company founder and consummate businessman, I need to talk about my own stuff, right?
Yes.
But what was interesting is you said no, like name the character, right? Like give the and my colleague and I recently decided that with our company, you know, we focus on customer success as a core function for a lot of companies, SaaS companies out there. And we realize that what's happening right now in the world of the economy and in SaaS and this downturn we're seeing and everything, are having a tough time, sales teams and salespeople, unfortunately, in this moment. And customer success managers who own existing customer revenues most of the time are having to step up. But they've always kind of been they've always been in the shadows of sales. And so we thought, my colleague and I, it reminded us of Rosie the Riveter, that during wartime, you know, the women are asked to step up and show their strength. And in some ways that reminded us of, so we named our superhero, Rosie, to go through this journey as a customer success. I don't know. Maybe that's good. Maybe it's not. You can tell me.
Well, there's good. And then there's things to think about as far as that goes. But you're right, to have a person that they can think about. And I would also just add this, as sales are struggling, customer success experts. This is not only is it your time to shine by necessity, but you actually know the characters that you're working with, right? If you're trying to tell customer success stories and equip your salespeople because they need those stories now more than ever. You're the bridge. You're the one who knows them by name. You're the one who knows what they've been through.
Yeah. When I read your book, and the reason I wanted to have you on the show is the relevance of of what you talk about is, I mean, it's so relevant to the world of customer success. And I was thinking about different use cases where there could be huge value. How do you sell your company vision to your customers? How do you elicit stories from your customers?
Absolutely.
We know customer marketing is increasing. How do you share your own story? You always have to be advocating for yourself. And, I see that now on LinkedIn and all over the place. How do you share the story of your customers once you've elicited those stories? How does customer success share the story of their own impact, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So there were all types of different kind of applications is what I saw. In my current role at UpdateAI, the concept of having a market narrative fit came up, right? Like there's your product, sure, does that work? Does it solve a need? But then it's just like, does your narrative fit into the arena of what you're doing? I want to try to blend a couple of those story types together in telling you my story and get your feedback and really critique, if that's okay with you, Kindra.
You got it. Let's see what we can do.
So this is unedited, raw, and you're gonna like blast it back at me here. I want your candid feedback.
Okay, you asked for it. Here we go.
All right. So I haven't rehearsed this either, to my own detriment here. So I've been running UpdateAI for a little over 2 years now, about 2.5 years. And prior to that, I was working as a consultant at Boston Consulting Group. And in consulting, it's just, there's lots of communication. There's lots of presentations, lots of communication, lots of notes, all kinds of things like that. That's in many ways how consulting in that type of world can make their revenues. And we were moving really quickly, and information was getting lost from these fast moving, high performing teams. And so I said, how can I make sure that everybody stays on the same page each week in all the work that our team is doing and all that we're accomplishing? And so the very first kind of inception for UpdateAI was just that. It was how do we take all of the key information for the team, whether it's here's all that we've accomplished, here's all that we have to do, here's all the action items, here's the blockers, the open questions, and distill that down into like a quick update, into a quick narrative that everybody gets on the same page for. Then we started to, we jumped into this and we started interviewing and kind of understanding different functions and verticals. We realized that meetings were really kind of the central point of communication for lots of teams, especially during COVID, going into this remote working world. And then we said, okay, great, let's solve meetings. We don't want to just be a generic meeting note taker, so to speak. So we started talking to different functions about understanding what they would need. We came across customer success managers, realized that these folks were in meetings with customers every day, underappreciated and underserved in our opinion. And they had a lot to follow up on after calls with customers because accountability to the customer matters. So we said, okay, how can we help them the most? And that's where we developed our algorithm for detecting action items so that we are in calls with customer success managers, with their customers, detecting all the action items automatically for them so that nothing slips through the cracks and we can relieve some of their stress in back-to-back meetings so that they can stay focused on the customer conversation. And that's the start of our company. And there's a whole story about the vision, which to me is actually more interesting, but I'm not going to go there. I feel right now, Kindra, like I just had a really long and uninteresting monologue. So pick that apart.
Okay. So here's where, and it would take, so I'm just going to give you kind of a few things because I was taking notes. And so then I was, but here's what was great is that it was cool. Like we had, you could see it was clear why you came to this. There was a moment in there when you said that information was getting lost, but here's where things kind of fell apart. So the good news is, so that's all I can say nice about it, Josh. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's where I want to go back to the 4 components. We need characters. And in this situation, you're one of the characters and we can explore whether or not we need to have another one. Because usually the narrator, the teller of the story is an inherent character and it's valuable to have another character in there. We were missing the emotion, which we can talk about, but like you said, the information was getting lost. And here's where where the misconception about emotion in a story in business is that it needs to be dramatic, and it's information getting lost probably isn't super dramatic, except that it's emotional. Like, why we're doing all of this work where it's frustrating for the people who are putting in the effort and they don't have, they know that they're not maximizing the work that they've done because the information is getting lost. I would imagine that there's a lot of time loss. I would imagine that there's a lot of efficiency, and these are people. These are people who are like, I'm good at there's so much good stuff here and I can't do anything with it because I'm just trying to keep track of the stuff. So even not knowing anything about except for the little that I know, I would imagine that is the emotion, and anyone that you're telling this story to, because we tell stories to audiences for reasons. And the reason you would be telling this is because they know how that feels, right? They've felt that before. And so, and you don't, you know what I mean? So
bring the emotion.
Exactly.
Now let's turn to Geoff Moore. What's the first thing to do in an economic downturn? Let's find out.
Now is the time where we should all be investing in our existing customers and expanding them and not losing them, right? But is there some psychology that just keeps drawing people to sales and to the new shiny toy? And how do I objection handle that and help have that conversation as a platform that is right now approaching decision makers in customer success?
Yeah, so let's be clear. With tailwinds, it's smart to be worried about the top of the funnel. I mean, basically processing the top of the funnel will lead to stuff at the bottom of the funnel. We're not worried about budget being redirected or whatever. We're just going to try to make it work. First rule in a downturn is don't take your customer's budget for granted. Whereas in an upturn, in good times you do. In good times you qualify a customer. If they don't have budget, you don't call on them. But in a downturn, even if they do have budget, they may not have permission to spend it. And so then the question is, well, what do you do instead? And this gets to the provoke your customer point in the article, which is in a downturn, you have to either create budget, or more likely what you have to do is redirect budget. And the way you redirect budget is you say, look, there is a place that you're not investing that you should be investing. And you make a very compelling case for saying, now is the time for you to move the budget from A to B. And by the way, once it's at B, I can compete for it, because that's the reason I'm telling you this story is I want to sell you what I do. But I can't sell it to you if you don't have budget for it and don't have priority to spend that budget. And so the provoke sales call was all about you need to reframe your understanding of your business. You need to reframe the understanding of the risks you're exposed to. And the opportunity. It's mostly, by the way, about risk, not opportunity. In a downturn, people are much more worried about plugging the leaks in the boat than they are about sailing to Tahiti. So basically, it's like, okay, how do I fix the? So it's got to be very immediate and very pressing, and it's usually a problem or a risk. And so, and because they've had good times, they've kind of shoved it on, like tech debt. Tech debt. Well, a little more tech debt, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, it's not going to be okay. In a downturn, a couple of things will happen. First of all, how do you lose money in a downturn? Well, one is you spend the money at the top of the funnel. By the way, people are interested. They care. You work them through the sales cycle. But when you get to the bottom, a whole bunch just defect, either because they couldn't get the budget or it wasn't going to get prioritized. So think about not only the absolute cost, but the opportunity cost of processing all those deals to no outcome. So that's number one. Number two is this notion of, you go look at customer success and you say, okay, customer success is really key to retention. Obviously, it's an important thing. But the customer success manager doesn't control their budget. It's not their budget. It's the chief revenue officer, or whoever you want to put that highest level, who says, I'm going to take my budget, I'm going to put some in marketing, I'm going to put some in sales, and I'm going to put some in customer success. In a tailwind, you say, I'm going to put more in marketing and more in sales, and I'll do, customer success, God bless. But even if I have a bunch of churn, I'm growing so damn fast at the front end, I can live with a certain amount of leaking in the boat. In a downturn, just turn the priority absolutely around. Your chances of getting a new logo in a downturn are dramatically worse. Not just sort of worse. They're god-awful worse. Because in a downturn, the last thing you want to do is onboard a new vendor. So on the other hand, your install base becomes your practical point of of growth. And first of all, by the way, let's just not have shrinkage. Right? So how do I maintain my base? But the good news is the money they have, they're going to spend it with their existing vendors. And the bigger the vendor you are, the more likely it is that you're able to consolidate around you. So if you're Gainsight competing against Salesforce, in a tailwind world, Gainsight has a lot of advantage. It's got one product to sell. It knows how to sell it really well. There's people got budget for it. But in a downturn, Salesforce has the advantage because they say, well, yeah, Gainsight's great, by the way, but, we add our little module here and really, frankly, you got pretty much what you need. And by the way, I can give it to you for 7 cents and, blah, blah, blah. But why would someone in a downturn spend money in customer success that you could compete for? And if the answer is, well, your customers will be happier, happiness is not exactly the currency of a downturn. So what would? Well, you in a downturn, if you lose customers, first of all, we said customers is your best opportunity, but if you lose customers, the impact, because you can't replace them, the impact on your business model is devastating. And so most people say, well, we've been tracking our NRR, we've been tracking our attrition and our retention rate. We have statistics, it's blah, blah, blah. And part of the provocation, I think, at this point would be, yeah, but that's not that you cannot expect that to continue in the future. You're going to be under enormous pressure. What are you doing to improve take the leaks in your boat and patch them now? Because you're going to head into a stormy weather. And if you have leaks in the boat, and so I would make it all about leaks in the boat. And then and then your software has very interesting capabilities to patch a whole bunch of leaks in the customer success boat.
Did someone say ChatGPT for customer success? For free? UpdateAI has you covered. CSMs get automated summaries of every customer call. That's real time savings that adds up. There's no bot, and Update even works alongside other tools like Gong. Sign up today at www.update.ai. That's update.ai.
And lastly, Kelly Leonard. This was such a fun conversation I had with Kelly. And I know you're all going to benefit from hearing again the techniques of improvisation and how they apply to business day-to-day communication.
But one thing that came to mind is you're constantly getting requests from customers, whether you're in sales or whether you're in customer success, post-sales. And, oftentimes maybe that request, you can't fulfill immediately, or there's reasons behind the scenes that no, I could never get that done. We have a backlog, or my manager would say this or whatever. And so how do people naturally yes and when the situation
you can't?
Yeah, when you can't.
Okay. Yeah, I actually have an answer for that. When we first started this project at the University of Chicago, a small group of our top sort of performer teachers, directors, were meeting with a handful of professors. And these are sort of major figures in the field. And we took them through that yes and exercise. And they were like, this is great. We already have the evidence that can prove why this works. And they asked the question, what do you do when you can't yes and the person, but you need to stay inside the conversation? And we didn't know, they didn't know, but they went and looked at research that existed and looked around. We went back and practiced some stuff out on stage. And when we came together, we had an idea. And we took this idea, turned it into this exercise, and there's a paper coming out next year. And basically the idea is thank you because. So when you are in a disagreement or a situation where you can't agree with the person, but you need this thing to keep going, you first thank them, which sets off the gratitude part of the brain. Everyone loves that. There's no threat. And the because is crucial. You find something, anything, no matter how small, that you can agree with what they said. Thank you, because you just brought something to my attention that I don't know how to solve, and I'd like to figure out how to solve it. And it can be used in a variety of different ways. And I think this will resonate for anyone who lives in America right now.
Yeah.
That we are all about the canceling. We are all about the, not listening and not talking. And guess what? That doesn't get us anywhere. We have to all do this together. That's what the human experience is about. And I'm not saying you have to put up with, unjust systems. I'm saying in many cases, we let low stake, low level, dumb stuff get in the way of a potentially flourishing relationship. People want to be in delight, and they get that feeling. They can get that feeling with a human relationship. So one of the things that's always bugged me, especially in recent years, as I've worked with the business schools and with businesses, is in businesses how much they don't pay attention to what we know about human behavior. Why would you not use the science of human behavior because you're probably have human beings selling to other human beings.
Any tips around dealing with somebody who's a big kvetcher? They like to complain. There's escalation, right? We all know that folks that talk to customers have to deal with complaints and escalations. Is there anything to disarm, or does that just go back to the thank you because?
I don't know. I mean, comedy is a superpower, which also means it can be used for evil. That's true too. And I don't want to suggest that people who don't have the ability to use comedy don't. I use it to diffuse things all the time, and it's very useful. And sometimes that's finding a common enemy. So I think if you can kind of like, what's the kvetching and how do I get the spotlight off of me or our company or something like that, that can be very effective as well. I do not enjoy toxic people. And I would suggest that if someone is toxic, you need to stay away from them. And then if you're in the business of like, well, that's my job, find another job. This is not healthy.
Well, that's a good point too, as well. Yeah.
No, I do lots of public speaking and I'm in lots of panels, and often someone be like, I agree with everything you're saying, but I got this boss and they won't do this, they won't do that. And I'm like, quit. I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to, you're not changing this human. And what we know is that people don't leave companies, they leave bosses,
right, that
they don't like. And what we also know is that you can have a business that has a bunch of bad bosses, but if you're in the one team that has a good boss, you're fine. You're fine because your day to day,
you're happy.
So I have a great boss right now. I have the best boss I've ever had in my career at Second City, and this person listens to me, values what I say, challenges me, makes me understand what I am actually responsible for. And there's a high degree of trust that goes both ways. And we check in on that, which is like, are we still in this like good place? And it's like, I work harder, I work smarter because of that relationship. And I've had mediocre bosses and it's been okay. And that's, that can be fine too. But if there's a note I would give young Kelly, it would have been, hey, when that real bad boss came along, you should have left.
Yeah.
Now, I like that I'm still here. I'm glad I'm still here. But there were years in terms of my working life here where I was like, no, that was fairly miserable for a couple of years, and
nobody should suffer.
Yeah. And then understanding that I have value outside of the brand that I'm associated with, and I think we all are. I think we all have a fear that we're not gonna find the thing, or like the grass is always greener. I get all that, but no, sometimes you just gotta get out, get it. And look, younger generations understand that. This is, we are no longer working in the place where, my dad worked at WGN radio and TV for 33 years. I've been here for 34. My wife's been here for 36. That is a rare thing now.
And that's it. If you enjoy this medley, let me know and we'll do more. Thanks again, and see you next time. Redirect my profile. Thanks.